The question of why Judaism is so insistent on rules was actually raised by the founder of Christianity, and contrary to what people might think, Jesus was not the founder of Christianity as a religion. The actual founder was Paul, who was a person who never even met Jesus in Jesus' lifetime. Paul was born a Jew, and of course, halachically, Paul died as a Jew. But Paul did formulate Christian theology as a new religion. And it's very interesting that Paul had an argument that has a certain surface plausibility to it, although obviously Judaism rejects it entirely. And his argument is that it really cannot be important to God whether you keep this detail or that detail. After all, there are so many details that human beings inevitably will fail. And as a result, his argument was that God had abrogated the need to keep commandments, and all that matters is what is in your heart: love, faith, belief in Jesus, etc. And indeed, that is why to this day, Christianity, in all of its various forms, tends to stress ethical generalities, be a good person, as opposed to giving you the nitty-gritty of what to eat, how to eat, where to go, how to go, etc. So the question does remain, why does Judaism have such an insistence on legalism? And in truth, the insistence on the minutiae of the Torah is very, very significant from two perspectives. On one hand, it reflects God realistically understanding human nature. After all, He made us. He knows exactly what we are. Human beings are creatures, and I include myself, of infinite rationalization in the name of self-interest. If God were to simply tell us, be a good person, be a nice person, and leave it to us to figure out the details, well, we would tend to interpret what it means to be good with whatever it is that is convenient to us, that is expedient to us. After all, the Nazis themselves convinced many, many people in Europe that it was morally justifiable to treat Jews as vermin and extinguish them for the betterment of society. We can fool ourselves in all sorts of ways. We can define whatever is convenient to us, whatever makes us feel good, as being what is morally right and ethical. As a result, therefore, the concept of divine revelation is really God's statement that we are not totally capable on our own of ascertaining what is good and what is moral. God has to give us specific directions. Now, let me point out, there was a time in human history where indeed human beings could rely on their intuition. After all, until the Torah was given, we are told that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, our matriarchs, they kept the whole Torah even before it was given. Now the question presents itself, how did they know what the Torah said if the Torah was not given yet? And the answer to that is something that we really don't understand. But the process is that the same way most of us can intuitively understand that it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal, they understood they're under the DNA of the universe, as it were, that a person has to wear tefillin, a person has to keep Shabbos. They understood by their own intuition and by their own conscience what God wants us to do. But as the generations get further and further away from that holiness, and as we get further and further tainted with selfish self-interest, and just as a compass will point true north, but when there's an interference with its magnetic field, it's going to get thrown off course. So too, because of our lust, because of our self-interest, because of our selfishness, because of our egotism, the natural conscience and intuition of a godly soul can become perverted. And therefore, we need detail in order to guarantee that we walk in the ways of God. Intuition has value, but intuition can easily lead us astray, and that is why we need revelation. That is one reason why Judaism is fixated so much on detail. Reason number 2 actually makes an opposite point, although it's complementary. Reason number 2 is that, going back to Paul's argument that God abrogated the need to keep commandments was based, in large sense, on a very pessimistic view of the hopeless condition of man. His argument is that there is no way that man can perfect himself by all of these details, so it must be that God in his mercy just got rid of him. Well, Judaism teaches that God did not let us off the hook so easily. God says, you can perfect yourself, and therefore you must perfect yourself. I'm not going to give you cheap grace. I'm not going to give you holiness for free. I'm going to give you a way to achieve it by effort, by commitment, by work. In many, many ways, the very detail of Judaism is an expression of God's hope and confidence in man that we are capable of perfecting ourselves, as opposed to the view that we're so incapable that God just threw out the rules. A third idea, which comes up a lot, and I think I've mentioned it before, is that because Judaism teaches that there need not be a dichotomy between the physical and the spiritual, that one serves God not merely by meditation and spiritual exercises, but by confronting the sordid realities of day-to-day physical life. God wants us to translate the abstract and theoretical ideas of holiness into the concretization of specific physical actions. And that is why he basically said, don't be holy in the abstract. Be holy in the concretization of the material. And that is really what mitzvahs are about. So essentially, I think we have 3 related explanations. Explanation number 1 is the need to have specific guidance because intuition can lead us astray. Explanation number 2, God's hopeful view of man as being capable of self-transcendence and perfection. And number 3, the capacity to sanctify even the mundane and the material. To take an example, we make blessings before we eat. We make blessings after we go to the bathroom, to take perhaps an indelicate example. Sometimes children make fun of that. Oh, you make a blessing after you go to the bathroom. But the answer is we recognize that even the physical operation of the body is expressive of divine kindness, divine compassion. We want to link to that compassion by acknowledging God in every single facet of our lives, instead of living schizophrenic lives in which we're holy and spiritual when we're praying and meditating, and we are simply animalistic when we're eating and drinking and sleeping and being intimate with our spouses. The rule of the Torah is everything can be holy, therefore everything must be holy.
Thanks for watching. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell below for daily pearls of Jewish wisdom.